Abrego Garcia, who was in the United States legally. He had a green card. He's married. He has children in the United States.
Well, here we go again, another Democrat in El Salvador, but this time it's Carrie Kennedy, who is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s sister. Now, she is representing the Robert F. Kennedy human rights down in El Salvador, and you heard that correctly. Apparently, Kilmar Abrego Garcia had a green card. We will dig into all of that. I'm letting you know right now, nobody, absolutely nobody has ever said that. You can't find any articles on that, but let's see what else she's trying to do in El Salvador.
We're here in San Salvador, El Salvador, and we've come on a human rights mission with a team of international lawyers to look at the conditions we're facing here. This is a country that is under what is essentially martial law, and they have this unholy alliance with the Trump administration where at least 288 people have been kidnapped off the streets of the United States and flown to a foreign country and are now being held in detention centers and prisons.
Alright, I have to stop here because it gets even worse, especially when we start to talk about Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I promise you're not even going to believe what she has to say about him. Now, martial law in El Salvador. When you look at the context, obviously it sounds crazy. Why would a country institute martial law? Well, El Salvador has had one of the most violent histories in the world, and the president said, you know what, we have no other choice but to institute martial law, and ever since they've done that, the violence has gone down and the rates have gone down as far as crime. Now, saying that the United States is snatching people off the streets, I'll let you guys decide how you feel about that statement. Let us continue.
Some of the most notorious detention centers and prison in the world, known for torture. And there is no due process. There is no known date of release. So we're here to investigate that. We're going to talk to families of other detainees in those detention centers and in those prisons so we can find out exactly what are the conditions these people are facing. And we're representing 10 of them before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. The Inter-American Commission and the Inter-American Court for Human Rights is like a Supreme Court that sits above all the Supreme Courts for Latin America. So if you win a case there, the country has to comply.
So you're telling me all Democrats have to do if they want to free Kilmar Abrego Garcia, all they have to do is go to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and they can do that? Well, absolutely not. Now, it is true, this particular court does have jurisdiction over El Salvador. However, who is going to enforce the rule or the law? This is the same exact thing we are seeing with Russia. Russia has been charged. Putin has been charged with all of these crimes. Who is going to enforce it? This is the problem with those statements. It is an implication that something can actually get done when we know El Salvador is going to be like, okay, you guys can say whatever you want about El Salvador, but who is going to tell us what to do and who is going to enforce anything on our country?
We are also going to look into the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was in the United States legally. He had a green card. He's married. He has children in the United States. And he was swept off the streets in Maryland and kidnapped and disappeared and sent here to El Salvador. And we're going to be looking into his case as well.
That is right, you heard that correctly. Apparently, Kilmar Abrego Garcia has a green card. However, you can go look it up yourself. You cannot find any single article that has to do with a green card. I even used Grok. I used AI, ChatGPT. They dig into every single source on the internet. Not one source talks about a green card. You even look into the actual court documents from the Supreme Court. Nowhere do they say anything about a green card. What they do say, though, subject to a withholding order. And the United States has already said this was a mistake. We should have never sent him to El Salvador. However, we are allowed to deport him. So again, I don't know where the green card thing is coming from. Maybe you guys know something. Maybe they know something, but absolutely shocking to even say that.
The reason why, this case is so important, as we've stated, this is bigger than just the case of Mr. Garcia. It goes back to the comments of the president. Homegrowns could be next. I mean, he's talking about U.S. citizens here, and that is something that I am very concerned about. I think many colleagues are concerned about, and we should continue to sound the alarm. If we live in a country where the Supreme Court is not abided by and listened to, then I don't know how we are going to continue functioning as a democracy. I think everyone recognizes the urgency of this and the fact that the president and the administration admitted a wrongful error but refused to do anything about it despite the Supreme Court's order. So we want to keep calling attention to this issue as much as the president is continuing to want to distract and hope that we just forget about it.
Now, I keep pointing this out. The more and more evidence comes out about Kilmar Abrego Garcia as far as his past, who he's been dealing with, the things about his wife and how he treated her, the more and more Democrats really start to separate away from Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They start to talk about the other cases, not only Kilmar, but the other ones. So again, I'm just pointing that out.
Completely shameful and dangerous. I mean, we're in a moment right now where the president is defying the judicial branch of government. We have a separation of powers in this country. You don't get to pick and choose what parts of the Constitution you actually want to follow. This is the president of the United States. And if the Supreme Court is ordering that someone gets returned back to our country, he has to follow those orders and that ruling. And why this case is so important is that we cannot allow Donald Trump to cross this line. A president has not defied the Supreme Court in this way, and we cannot allow it to happen at this moment, which is why every single American should be very concerned that due process is under attack, something that is, of course, we know vital to the Constitution and something that's given to everyone in this country. Whether they're a citizen or a non-citizen, everyone has a right to due process.
Now, I do want to point this out, just in case you missed it. The Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, they are down in El Salvador to look into these detention centers or the prison systems, to look into the quality of the systems. However, Carrie Kennedy herself in the video did also talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So it is rather interesting. Ever since Senator Van Hollen went down to Venezuela, I mean, he's really opened up the floodgates for all Democrats to go down to El Salvador and look into everything, all things El Salvador, even though we have absolutely zero jurisdiction over the country. Again, I am not the defender of El Salvador. However, I am the defender of we can't just go into other countries and tell them what to do. We've tried that in the past and we know how that goes. Now, if you guys are unaware, it's been Donald Trump's first 100 days as a president, so we are starting to see a lot of data and polling as far as how do Americans feel about Donald Trump, especially his different policies. Now, according to CNN, everything is on a downward trend, everything is going downhill, but there is a lot of conflicting data, especially when it comes to immigration. So I'm just going to play this clip for you guys since we're here. Again, I am not endorsing this. You can take it with a grain of salt because there are other polls that say Donald Trump is doing a good job, but let us play this clip.
The issues. There's only one data point where Trump is above 45%. It comes to his handling of gender identity policy. He's at 51%. Every other issue, immigration, where he has long been above water, look at this, below water, 45%. How about the economy? My goodness gracious, he was elected to fix the economy, just 39%. And of course, the tariff war, 34% on that. I mean, the bottom line here is just very simply the numbers for Donald Trump are awful, awful, awful in this poll. And then, of course, you look again on the economy, we compare it to where we were back in 2017. You see the 49% there. Look here, 39%, 10 points below where he was. I'm going to make the green mark a little bit better there, 49%. And again, I went back and looked at all the presidents I possibly could since 1977, and Donald Trump on the economy here, it's not just the lowest for this term, it's the lowest for any president on record 100 days into a presidency. Just no bueno, Jessica.
That is really remarkable. Okay, so how confident are people that he's going to use the office of the presidency responsibly?
Yeah, okay, so we're talking about the issues. Let's just talk a little bit here about just the overall way that Donald Trump is going about his business, right? Use presidential power responsibly. No confidence Trump will. Well, back in December of 2024, it was 46%. Look at where we've jumped to now, 54% of Americans have no confidence that Trump will use the power of the presidency responsible. And so this just tells you on every single different data point you could possibly look at, whether it be Trump's overall approval, whether it be the issues for Donald Trump, or how he conducts himself in office, all of these numbers are pretty much terrible for Donald Trump at this point. And so you just see it here. 54% who say that no confidence he's going to use presidential power responsibly. It's just no good, Jessica.
Now look, again, I am not naive. I know how the media works. This is CNN, and you never know where they're getting these numbers from. But I do think it's important that we look at all of the polling and all of the data. This number was at 60% on CNN only about a month ago. So it is just something to pay attention to. We can't dismiss everything and then all of a sudden be like, what happened? I'm letting you guys know right now, these numbers are sticking out to me a little bit, but I still see favorability as far as Donald Trump's immigration policy, considering if the numbers keep going down for Democrats, obviously that is a telltale sign that people still do support the immigration policy. I think this number is a little higher, maybe in the 55%.
Learn tonight more about Maryland man Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You remember him. He's in the news more than Trump these days. A new report suggests something strange was going on when he was pulled over on a Tennessee highway in 2022. The officer at the time suspected it was a human trafficking incident, and it looks like that, doesn't it? Now we're told through a DHS source that the car Abrego Garcia was driving belonged to a convicted human smuggler. This guy's really a delight. 8 other people were with him. They all used the same home address as Abrego Garcia, and no one has luggage for the drive. How do you figure that? Texas to Maryland, no luggage? Spanning multiple days, multiple states. Something is not adding up here. You put it together. No wonder Democrats are fighting so hard to get him back.
We have to have the courage to be down there and to be in places, even if we don't have the security that we need. We have to continue showing up.
We have to do everything we can right now. We went over there to try our best to see him, to make sure he's okay.
I hope other members of Congress come here and see this for themselves.
Alright, so there you go. If you are still watching this video, I really do appreciate it. I will definitely be keeping tabs on what Kerry Kennedy is doing down in El Salvador, and I'm sure, like I've been saying, we will keep seeing more and more Democrats down in El Salvador. And by the way, it makes sense. This is where a lot of the deportations are occurring, so if you are a Democrat, it might behoove you to want to be in El Salvador and try and get in contact with one of the deportees. So anyway, thank you guys for everything. God bless, and we'll see you all later.